They say when you speak a devil's name, he comes for you. Elena Cross learned that night, the hard way. Blood dripped from her split lip onto the marble floor of the Obsidian Club, each drop a testament to survival bought with silence. She'd kept her head down for 3 years, invisible among the city's elite. But tonight, cornered in a hallway that smelled of expensive cigars and her own fear, she made a choice that would burn her old life to ash. She whispered a name to the one man who could destroy her, or save her. Stay with me until the end. Hit like and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The first rule of working at the Obsidian Club was simple. Don't exist. Elena had that rule tattooed on her survival instinct for 3 years running. Keep your eyes down. Move like smoke through rooms full of people who could buy and sell your entire bloodline without checking their account balance. Refill the champagne. Clear the ashtrays. Vanish before they remember you have a face. Tonight, that rule shattered along with her cheekbone. She pressed herself against the service corridor wall, tasting copper. Her left eye was swelling shut already. She could feel the heat spreading across her face like spilled wine. The white shirt of her uniform stuck to her ribs where something wet was spreading. Blood, probably. She'd stopped checking after the second blow. The club pulsed around her, oblivious. Downstairs, crystal chandeliers threw fractured light across marble floors where men in suits worth more than her yearly salary made deals that moved cities. The bass from the main floor vibrated through the walls, a heartbeat that belonged to a world she served but never entered. Elena's own heartbeat was louder, frantic. Get up, move, before he comes back. Her legs didn't want to cooperate. They'd gone watery somewhere between the third and fourth time Marcus Voss slammed her against the storage room doorframe. Private room service, he'd said. VIP request. She'd gone because refusing wasn't an option, not when you needed every shift, every tip, every dollar that kept the medical bills from drowning your mother. She should have known better. 3 years of reading rooms, reading men, reading the temperature of danger before it boiled over, and she'd still walked into that room because the manager told her to. The door at the end of the corridor opened. Elena's spine went rigid. Her hand flew to her mouth, pressing against the split in her lip to keep any sound from escaping. Blood smeared across her fingers. Not Marcus. Please, not Marcus coming back to finish. Jesus Christ! The voice cut through her panic, sharp and controlled. Male. Unfamiliar. She forced her good eye open. The man standing 10 feet away didn't belong in the service corridors. His suit was black, perfectly tailored, the kind of craftsmanship that whispered rather than shouted wealth. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair pushed back from a face that could have been carved from the same marble as the club's floors. Sharp jawline, darker eyes that caught the dim hallway light and reflected nothing back. Adrian Vale. Elena's stomach dropped through the floor. Everyone knew that name. You didn't work at the Obsidian without learning who owned the air you breathed. Adrian Vale didn't just run the club, he owned half the city's underbelly and a good portion of its legitimate face. Politicians took his calls, police looked the other way. And people who crossed him didn't just disappear. They were never mentioned again. I'm fine, Elena heard herself say. The words came out mangled, her lip too swollen to shape them properly. I'm fine, You're not fine. Adrian's voice was flat, factual. He didn't move closer, but his gaze traveled over her with the precision of someone cataloging damage. Who did this? Nobody. I fell. Try again. Elena pushed herself more upright against the wall, ignoring the way her ribs screamed. Her vision swam. It's handled. I'll clean up. I just need a minute. You're bleeding through your shirt. I said I'm fine. And I said try again. Adrian took a step forward, slow, deliberate, like approaching a spooked animal. I don't tolerate lies in my club, so let's start over. Who put their hands on you? The question landed like a blade between her ribs. Elena's throat closed. She couldn't do this. Couldn't name Marcus Voss, whose father owned 3 casinos and had the mayor's personal number. Couldn't drag Adrian Vale into something that would cost her the only income keeping her mother's oxygen machine running. It doesn't matter, she whispered. It matters to me. Why? The word ripped out of her, sharper than she intended. Pain made her reckless. Why would it matter to you? I'm nobody. You work under my roof. Adrian's tone didn't rise, but something in it changed. hardened. That makes you my responsibility. So I'll ask one more time, and then I'm going to be significantly less patient. Who did this? His eyes were black in the dim light, unreadable. Elena's hands were shaking. She fisted them in her ruined shirt, trying to stop the tremors that were spreading through her whole body now that the adrenaline was crashing. Her mother's face flashed through her mind, pale against hospital sheets, oxygen tube in her nose, asking Elena if she was eating enough, sleeping enough, working too hard. I'm fine, Mama. Everything's fine. Marcus Voss. Elena breathed. The name hung in the air between them. Adrian didn't react, didn't blink, but something shifted in the space around him, like the pressure drop before a storm breaks. Where is he now? I don't know. The Oak Room, maybe. Elena's voice cracked. She swallowed hard, tasting blood. He told me to clean myself up before anyone saw. Said if I talked, he'd make sure I never worked in this city again. His father. I know who his father is. Adrian pulled out his phone, typed something with quick, efficient movements. Put it away. Can you walk? Yes, I think so. Good. Come with me. He turned toward the main corridor, clearly expecting her to follow. Elena didn't move. Where? Somewhere you can sit down before you fall down. Adrian glanced back at her. And somewhere I can get a better look at what he did. I should go home. I have a shift. Your shift is over. I need the money. You need a hospital. I can't afford... Elena. Her name in his mouth stopped her cold. She hadn't thought he knew it. You're going to pass out in about 3 minutes if you don't let me help you. So make a choice. You can walk with me to my office, or I can carry you there. But we're not having this conversation in a hallway. She must have hit her head harder than she thought, because for a second she almost laughed. The absurdity of it. Adrian Vale, the devil himself, offering to carry her like some kind of... Her knees buckled. Adrian moved fast. He caught her before she hit the floor, one arm around her waist, the other steadying her shoulder. His grip was careful, controlled, avoiding the worst of her injuries with the precision of someone who knew exactly where they were. Easy, he said quietly. I've got you. Elena's vision grayed at the edges. She felt herself being lifted, the world tilting as Adrian picked her up like she weighed nothing. The pain in her ribs flared white-hot, and she gasped, her hand clutching at his jacket. Breathe, Adrian told her. Slow, in and out. She tried. The air rattled in her chest. That's it. Stay with me. The corridor moved past in a blur. She registered the service elevator, the quiet hum of cables, the way Adrian shifted his hold so her head rested against his shoulder. He smelled like expensive cologne and something darker, smoke, maybe. Whiskey. Why are you doing this? Elena's words slurred together. Because someone needs to. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now. The elevator opened into a hallway she'd never seen before. Quieter, darker, away from the club's main floors. Adrian carried her through a door into an office that was all dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city's glittering sprawl. He set her down on a leather couch with the same careful precision, then moved to a cabinet against the wall. When he came back, he had a first aid kit and a bottle of water. Drink, he said, handing her the water. Elena's hands shook too badly to open it. Adrian took it back, cracked the seal, and pressed it into her palm again. Small sips. She drank. The water stung against her split lip, but cleared some of the copper taste from her mouth. Adrian knelt in front of her, actually knelt, this man who made senators nervous, and opened the first aid kit. I need to see what we're working with, he said. Your shirt. Can you lift it? Or should I? Elena flushed hot despite the pain. I can... She tried to raise her arms. Her ribs seized up, and she bit back a cry. Let me. Adrian's hands were steady as he carefully lifted the hem of her shirt, peeling it away from the blood that had dried to her skin. His expression didn't change, but his jaw tightened. Christ. How many times did he hit you? I stopped counting. Funny. I'm not joking. Adrian's eyes flicked up to meet hers. Something dangerous lived in that gaze. You need a hospital. These ribs could be fractured. I can't afford... I'm not asking you to. He pulled out his phone again. I have a doctor who handles things discreetly. He'll come here. Why would you... Because this, Adrian gestured at her injuries, his voice dropping to something colder than ice, doesn't happen under my roof without consequences. Marcus Voss made a mistake tonight, a significant one, and he's going to learn exactly how significant. The way he said it sent a chill down Elena's spine that had nothing to do with her injuries. "What are you going to do?" she asked. Adrian's smile was a knife edge. What I should have done the first time his family thought they were untouchable. He stood, moving to the windows. "The doctor will be here in 20 minutes. Until then, keep pressure on that cut above your eye. You're still bleeding." Elena pressed the clean gauze he'd handed her against her eyebrow, watching him. He stood silhouetted against the city lights, phone to his ear, speaking in low tones she couldn't quite catch. Every line of his body radiated controlled fury. She should be terrified. This man had a reputation that made hardened criminals nervous, but sitting here in his office, bleeding into his expensive couch, all she felt was a strange, disorienting sense of safety. It didn't make sense. Nothing about tonight made sense. Adrian finished his call and turned back to her. "The doctor's on his way. So is someone to bring you clean clothes?" His gaze traveled over her again, clinical. "You'll stay here tonight. Tomorrow we'll talk about next steps." "I need to go home. My mother is being taken care of. I sent someone to check on her." Adrian held up a hand before Elena could explode. "Just to make sure she has what she needs. No contact, no questions. But if she's in a care facility or at home with medical equipment, I need to know she's not going to panic when you don't come back tonight." Elena's throat tightened. "She's at St. Catherine's. Extended care. She sleeps heavy because of the medications. She won't know I'm not there until morning." "Good. Then you have time to let the doctor work without worrying about her." "I don't understand why you're doing this." Elena's voice cracked. "I'm nobody. Just another—" "Don't." Adrian's tone cut sharp. "Don't finish that sentence. You're not just another anything. You work for me. That means something. It doesn't mean you have to sit." "Yes, it does." He moved closer, crouching again so they were eye level. "Listen to me carefully, Elena. What happened tonight isn't your fault. Marcus Voss is a predator who's been using his family name as a shield for too long. That ends now. His father will come after you. His father will do exactly nothing if he values his casinos remaining open." Adrian's smile was cold. "I own this city in ways that matter. The Voss family forgets that sometimes. They need reminding." Elena stared at him. "You're going to start a war over you?" "Yes." Adrian said it like it was obvious. "I told you, you're under my roof. That makes you mine to protect." The possessiveness in that statement should have frightened her. Instead, it settled something jagged in her chest. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now you let the doctor patch you up. You rest. And tomorrow, we discuss how you want to handle this." "What do you mean, how I want to handle it?" Adrian's expression was unreadable. "Marcus Voss hurt you. That requires a response. But the scale of that response, whether he disappears permanently or just wishes he had, that's your choice, not mine." Elena's breath caught. "You're asking me if I want him dead. I'm asking you what justice looks like to you." Adrian stood, walked back to the windows. "I have my own opinions, but you're the one who bled tonight, so you get to decide." The casual way he discussed murder should have horrified her. Elena had spent her whole life playing by rules, staying small, surviving through invisibility. Good girls didn't consort with criminals. Good girls didn't consider violence as a solution. But good girls also didn't get beaten bloody in storage rooms by rich boys who thought they could take whatever they wanted. "I don't want him dead," Elena said slowly. "But I don't want him doing this to anyone else either." Adrian nodded once. "That can be arranged." A knock at the door interrupted them. Adrian called permission and a man entered, older, silver-haired, carrying a medical bag that had seen serious use. He took one look at Elena and tisked. "What happened to the other guy?" he asked dryly. "Nothing yet," Adrian said, "but give it time." The doctor, he didn't offer a name and Elena didn't ask, was efficient and surprisingly gentle. He cleaned her wounds, confirmed 2 fractured ribs, stitched the cut above her eyebrow, and gave her a shot of something that made the pain recede to a manageable throb. "No strenuous activity for 6 weeks," he told her. "Ice the ribs, keep the stitches dry, come back in 10 days for removal." He glanced at Adrian. She needs rest, real rest, not whatever version of rest she's been getting. Understood, Adrian said. The doctor packed his bag and left with the same quiet efficiency he'd arrived with. Elena watched him go, her head fuzzy from whatever he'd injected. You should sleep, Adrian said. There's a bedroom through that door. Clean clothes are on the bed. Elena looked where he pointed, a door she hadn't noticed before, half hidden in the wood paneling. Where will you... I have work to do. At 3 a.m? The kind of work that doesn't keep office hours. Adrian's expression was unreadable. Sleep, Elena. Tomorrow's going to be complicated. She wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers about what he meant, what he planned, what happened next. But the medication was pulling her under like a riptide, and her body was screaming for unconsciousness. Elena stood, wobbling slightly. Adrian moved to steady her, but stopped short of actually touching her, his hand hovering near her elbow. I've got it, she said, clearly. Despite everything, despite the pain and fear and absolute insanity of this entire night, Elena almost smiled. You're kind of an asshole. I'm aware. She made it to the bedroom door before turning back. Adrian? He looked up from his phone. Yeah? Thank you. Something crossed his face too quickly to name. Don't thank me yet. Elena didn't ask what he meant. She was asleep before her head hit the pillow. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through windows she didn't recognize. For a disorienting moment, Elena couldn't place where she was. The sheets were too soft, the room too quiet, everything wrong. Then her ribs reminded her why she was here, and memory crashed back in. She sat up carefully, testing her body's limits. Everything hurt, but the sharp, breathless agony from last night had dulled to a persistent ache. The clothes she'd been wearing were gone, replaced by black silk pajamas that definitely weren't hers. Someone had cleaned her up while she slept. Her hands were free of blood. Her face had been gently washed. The thought of being that vulnerable, that unconscious, should have terrified her. Instead, she felt strangely calm. Elena stood, moving to the window. Adrian's office overlooked downtown from what had to be the 20th floor at least. The morning sun turned the glass towers gold. Below, the city moved through its morning routine, oblivious to the fact that her entire world had shifted on its axis. The bedroom door opened. Elena spun, her heart jumping into her throat. A woman stood in the doorway, late 30s, sharp-eyed, wearing a charcoal suit that screamed competence. She held a coffee cup in a manila folder. Morning, the woman said. I'm Reese, Adrian's associate. He asked me to check on you. Her gaze traveled over Elena with the same cataloging precision Adrian had used. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. Close. You got hit by Marcus Voss, which is arguably worse. Reese stepped into the room, setting the coffee on the nightstand. Black, 2 sugars, that's your usual, right? Elena blinked. How did you, We know our people. Reese's smile was brief. Adrian wants to see you when you're ready. No rush, but he thought you'd want updates. Updates on what? On Marcus Voss. Reese opened the folder, pulled out a photograph. As of 6 this morning, he no longer exists in this city. Elena took the photo with trembling hands. It showed Marcus boarding a private plane, his face a mess of bruises and fear. What did you do to him? She whispered. What he deserved. Reese's voice was matter-of-fact. Adrian had a conversation with his father. Marcus is on a plane to Singapore, where he'll be starting a new position at one of their manufacturing facilities. Manual labor. No contact with his family. No coming back. He tries, and the evidence of what he did to you, and 7 other women we found, goes straight to every news outlet in the country. Elena's legs went weak. She sat down hard on the bed. 7 others? You weren't his first, but you'll be his last. Reese took the photo back. The Voss family cooperated very quickly once Adrian explained the alternative. Marcus is gone. His friends who helped cover for him are being handled separately, and you never have to see any of them again. I don't understand. Elena's voice came out small. Why would Adrian do this for me? What does he want? Reese's expression softened slightly. You'll have to ask him that yourself. But for what it's worth. He doesn't do anything he doesn't mean. If he says you're protected, you're protected. She left Elena alone with that statement and a cup of coffee that somehow knew her exact preference. Elena dressed in the clothes someone had left. Dark jeans, a soft sweater, everything in her exact size. Her ruined uniform was gone. When she finally emerged from the bedroom, Adrian was at his desk, reading something on his tablet. He looked up when she entered. "You slept 12 hours. What? Elena checked the windows. The sun was wrong. Too high. What time is it? Almost 2? Adrian set down the tablet. The doctor said you needed rest, so I let you rest. My shift? I told you, you don't work there anymore. Elena's stomach dropped. You fired me? I promoted you. Adrian leaned back in his chair. You're not going back to the club floor, Elena. That life is over. You can't just... I need that job. My mother's bills are being handled. I don't want your charity. Good. Because I'm not offering it. Adrian stood, moving around the desk. I'm offering you a choice. You can walk away from this, from me, from all of it. I'll set you up with a new job somewhere safe. Good pay. Benefits. Your mother's care fully covered. You never have to think about the Obsidian or Marcus Voss again. Elena's throat tightened. Or you stay. Adrian's dark eyes held hers. You work for me directly. Different kind of job. Better pay. More danger. But also more control over your own life than you've ever had. What kind of job? The kind where you see how things really work in this city. Where you learn to navigate power instead of surviving around its edges. Adrian's voice was quiet, intense. You're smart, Elena. 3 years watching my club, and you've never once caused a problem. Never stolen, never gossiped. You read people better than half my security team. That's a skill set I can use. You want to turn me into, what, a criminal? I want to give you options. Adrian moved closer. Last night you were invisible. Today, Marcus Voss is on a plane to Singapore because I decided you matter. Tomorrow, you get to decide who you want to be, victim or player. Your choice. Elena stared at him. This man who'd appeared in a hallway and rewritten her entire existence in 12 hours. Who'd held her while she bled and dispatched her abuser with cold efficiency. Who was offering her a devil's bargain wrapped in protection. What happens if I say no? She asked. Then you walk away clean. New job. New life. We never speak again. Adrian's expression was unreadable. But you'll always wonder what you could have become if you'd said yes. He was right. God help her. He was right. Elena took a shaky breath, testing the idea in her mind. Staying, learning, becoming something other than the invisible girl who cleaned up after other people's messes. I want to know what you did to him, she said quietly. To Marcus. The whole truth. Adrian's smile was sharp as a blade. All right, sit down. This might take a while. And as Elena settled into the chair across from his desk, watching this dangerous man who'd claimed her as his responsibility, she realized something that should have terrified her but didn't. She was already choosing to stay. Adrian gestured to the leather chair across from his desk. Elena sat, her ribs protesting the movement. The office felt different in daylight, less like a sanctuary and more like what it actually was, a command center. The windows showed the city stretched out below like a game board, and Adrian Vale held half the pieces. Coffee? He asked. I already had some. Reese brought it. Good. Then we can skip the pleasantries. Adrian settled into his own chair, studying her with that same cataloging intensity that made Elena feel simultaneously seen and dissected. You want the truth about Marcus Voss. Fair enough. You earned it. Elena's stomach tightened, but she kept her voice steady. I'm listening. After I left you with the doctor last night, I made 3 phone calls. Adrian ticked them off on his fingers. First to Marcus Voss directly. Told him he had 2 hours to present himself at a location of my choosing, or I'd come find him. He showed up in 90 minutes. What did you do to him? Let him talk first. Gave him a chance to explain. Adrian's expression was carved ice. He tried to lie. Said you came on to him, that you were clumsy and fell, that I was overreacting to a misunderstanding between employer and employee. Elena's hands fisted in her lap. And you believed him? I let him finish. Then I showed him the security footage. Her head snapped up. What footage? The Obsidian has cameras everywhere, Elena. Service corridors included. Not monitored in real time because I employ people I trust not to need babysitting, but the recordings exist. I pulled the one from last night. Adrian's jaw tightened. Watched you walk into that storage room intact. Watched Marcus follow you in. Watched him drag you out 30 minutes later looking like he'd used you for boxing practice. The room spun slightly. Elena gripped the chair arms. There's video of everything. Audio too, once I cleaned it up. Adrian's voice dropped lower. You said no 17 times, told him to stop, begged him to let you go. He laughed. Bile rose in Elena's throat. She'd been so focused on surviving the moment she hadn't thought about proof, about witnesses beyond her own battered body. Where is it now? The footage? Backed up in 5 different locations. Cloud storage, physical drives. With my lawyers. With people who know to release it if anything happens to you or me. Adrian leaned forward. Marcus Voss will spend the rest of his life knowing that evidence exists, that his name is one bad decision away from being destroyed completely. You used it as leverage. I used it as a nuclear option. Adrian's smile was cold. Which brings me to the second phone call, to his father. Elena had met Gerald Voss once, in passing. He'd been touring the club with a politician, all-expensive suit and practiced charm. The kind of man who smiled while calculating your net worth. How did that go? About as well as expected. Denial, outrage, threats about what his family would do to me. Adrian shrugged. I let him bluster for 30 seconds. Then I sent him a 10-second clip from the security footage, just enough to show his son's face. His son's hands around your throat. The casual way Adrian described it sent chills down Elena's spine. What did he say? Nothing for a full minute. Then he asked what I wanted. And you said? Marcus disappears permanently. No contact with family beyond supervised quarterly video calls. No money beyond a basic salary at whatever job I assign him. No coming back to this city, this state, or this country unless I give explicit permission. Adrian's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing a business merger. In exchange, the footage stays private. His family's reputation remains intact. And I don't pursue charges against the 7 other women Marcus assaulted over the past 3 years. Elena's breath caught. Reese mentioned them. How did you find them? I have people who are very good at finding things. Once I knew what to look for, the pattern was obvious. Young women, service industry, no family connections powerful enough to fight back. Marcus had a type. Did you talk to them? The other women? Reese did, quietly. Gave them the option to come forward if they wanted, but didn't pressure them. 4 wanted nothing to do with it, just wanted to move on. 2 wanted financial compensation for medical bills and lost work. 1 wanted to watch Marcus burn. Adrian's expression darkened. I made sure all of them got what they needed. Elena's throat tightened. She thought she was alone. Thought she was the only one stupid enough to walk into that room, to believe she could just do her job and get out safely. The one who wanted to watch him burn. What did you do for her? Put her on a video call with Marcus while I explained his new life. Adrian's smile was sharp. Made sure he knew she was watching, that she'd gotten the last word. Something fierce and hot blazed in Elena's chest. Not quite satisfaction, not quite vengeance, something newer. What was the third call? To my travel coordinator. Arranged Marcus's flight to Singapore. One way. Leaves this morning at 6. Adrian checked his watch. He's halfway over the Pacific by now. Just like that. Just like that. Elena sat with that information, trying to process it. Less than 24 hours ago, she'd been invisible. A girl in a uniform who cleaned up other people's messes and kept her head down. Now Marcus Voss was on a plane to the other side of the world because Adrian Vale had decided she mattered. The whiplash was dizzying. You said he's working manufacturing. What does that mean? Exactly what it sounds like. I own an electronics factory outside Singapore. Brutal hours, 100-degree heat, assembly line work. Marcus will be fitting circuit boards into plastic casings 40 hours a week under supervision. Adrian's tone was clinical. He'll live in company housing, eat in the company cafeteria. His salary covers basics and nothing else. No luxury, no status, no women to intimidate. How long? As long as I want. His father signed a contract giving me full discretion over the terms of Marcus's employment. He quits, he comes home, the The footage goes public. Adrian tilted his head. I'm thinking 5 years minimum, longer if he causes problems. 5 years. Elena tried to imagine Marcus Voss, who wore watches worth more than cars, spending 5 years in factory housing. The mental image was absurd and perfect. His father agreed to that? His father agreed to anything that kept his name out of a sexual assault scandal. Gerald Voss cares about 2 things, money and reputation. I threaten both. Adrian's expression was unreadable. Men like him are predictable. Apply the right pressure and they fold. You're not afraid of retaliation? Should I be? Adrian's smile was wolfish. Gerald Voss owns 3 casinos. I own the liquor licenses, the entertainment permits, and the health inspection schedules for all 3. He moves against me. His entire operation shuts down inside a week. He knows it. I know it. We have an understanding now. The casual display of power should have frightened her. Instead, Elena felt something loosen in her chest, some knot of fear she'd been carrying since last night. What about Marcus's friends? Reese said they were being handled separately. 3 of them knew what he was doing, helped him target women, provided alibis when needed. Adrian's voice went colder. They're learning that being complicit carries consequences too. What kind of consequences? The kind that don't involve Singapore but aren't gentle either. Lost jobs, blacklisted from their social circles, evidence of their involvement shared with people who matter. Adrian met her eyes. I don't kill people for sport, Elena, but I make sure they understand when they've crossed a line they can't uncross. Elena believed him. Everything about Adrian Vale radiated controlled violence, the kind that didn't need to be loud to be effective. You did all of this in 12 hours. I did all of this in 6. You slept through the rest. Why? The question hung between them. Adrian was quiet for a moment, his dark eyes studying her face. Because you whispered a name in a hallway and trusted me with it. Because you've worked for me for 3 years without causing problems. Because... He paused. Because I'm tired of men like Marcus Voss thinking they can take whatever they want without consequences. It wasn't the whole truth. Elena could hear the edge of something deeper beneath the words, something Adrian wasn't saying, but it was enough for now. What happens next? She asked. That depends on your answer to my earlier question. Adrian leaned back. Do you walk away, or do you stay? Elena looked down at her hands. They were steady now, the trembling from last night finally gone. Reese had cleaned the blood from under her nails, but Elena could still feel the ghost of it, the ghost of everything. 3 years she'd spent invisible. 3 years of keeping her head down, taking whatever the job demanded, surviving on the margins of other people's wealth and power. And where had it gotten her? Beaten bloody in a storage room by a man who knew she couldn't fight back. Adrian was offering her something different. Dangerous, yes. Morally complicated, absolutely. But also real, solid. A world where she didn't have to be invisible to survive. If I stay, Elena said slowly, what exactly would I be doing? Learning, initially. How my organization works. How to read people and situations. How to navigate rooms where one wrong word can cost you everything. Adrian's voice was matter-of-fact. You've been doing it instinctively for years. I'd teach you to do it strategically. And then? Then you'd be useful to me in ways that matter. Managing people, gathering information, handling situations that require discretion and intelligence. He tilted his head. You think I run the Obsidian alone? I have a team, small, vetted, loyal. You'd be part of that. Why would I be loyal to you? The question came out sharper than Elena intended, but she didn't take it back. Adrian's smile was brief. Because I protect what's mine. You've seen that now. And because unlike most people in this city, I don't lie about what I am or what I do. He stood, moving to the windows. You work for me. You'll do things that aren't legal, things that aren't nice. But you'll also be compensated well, protected completely, and given more control over your own life than you've ever had. You make it sound simple. It's not. It's complicated and dangerous and will change you. Adrian turned back to face her. But so is staying invisible. At least this way, you choose the kind of change. Elena's ribs ached. Her head throbbed where the stitches pulled. Every breath reminded her of what staying invisible had cost. How much time do I have to decide? As long as you need. But I'd prefer an answer before you leave this building. Adrian's expression was unreadable. If you're walking away, I need to set things in motion. New job, new identity if you want it. Clean break. And if I stay, then we start tomorrow. But Elena, his voice dropped. If you choose this, you're choosing all of it. There's no halfway. No keeping one foot in your old life while testing the water here. You're either in or you're out. She should ask for time. Should think about this rationally, weigh pros and cons, consider consequences. But Elena had spent 3 years being rational, being careful, being good. Look where that had gotten her. I want to stay, she heard herself say. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. You're sure? No, but I'm sure I don't want to go back to who I was yesterday. Elena met his eyes. You said I get to choose who I become. I'm choosing this. For a long moment, Adrian just looked at her. Then he nodded once. All right, then we have work to do. He moved back to his desk, pulled out a folder, set it in front of her. Your mother is at St. Catherine's Extended Care. Stage 3 lung disease. Requires oxygen 24/7 and regular monitoring. Bills average $4,200 a month. You've been covering it through your obsidian salary and 2 other part-time jobs you work on your days off. Elena's stomach dropped. How do you know? I know everything about the people who work for me. Backgrounds, families, debts, vulnerabilities. Adrian's tone was matter of fact. It's not personal. It's practical. That's terrifying. That's survival. He opened the folder. As of this morning, St. Catherine's has received payment in full for your mother's care. The next 2 years completely covered. Elena's breath stopped. What? Consider it a signing bonus. Adrian pulled out another document. This is your new employment contract. Salary is $8,000 a month to start, with performance bonuses. Health insurance that actually covers things. And a housing stipend since you'll be working odd hours and need to be close to the club. $8,000. Elena had been making barely $3,000 total from all her jobs combined. That's too much. That's market rate for what I'm asking you to do. Adrian slid the contract across the desk. Read it. Ask questions. Take your time. Elena picked up the document with shaking hands. The language was surprisingly straightforward. None of the legal jargon she'd expected. Her role was listed as operational associate. Duties included client relations, information management, and special projects as assigned. The salary was exactly what Adrian had said. The benefits were better than anything she'd ever had access to. There was a clause about confidentiality, another about loyalty, a third about understanding that certain aspects of the work existed in legal gray areas, and she accepted that risk. What happens if I break the contract? Depends on how you break it. Adrian's voice was even. You want to quit? Give me 2 weeks' notice like a normal job and walk away clean. You betray me, sell information, work against me, put my people at risk. Then we have a different conversation. The kind that ends with Singapore? The kind that ends with you wishing Singapore was an option. Adrian's smile was cold. I protect my people, Elena, fiercely. But that protection is conditional on loyalty. Break that, and you're on your own against everyone you've helped me act against. It was a threat wrapped in honesty. Elena appreciated the clarity. If I sign this, when do I start? When? Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Reese will show you the operation, introduce you to key people, start your training. Adrian paused. Fair warning, it's going to be overwhelming at first. You'll see things that make you question this choice. But if you push through, you'll come out the other side stronger. Elena looked at the contract, at the number that would cover her mother's care and her own rent with money left over, at the promise of health insurance and stability and a life that didn't involve 3 jobs and constant fear. She thought about Marcus Voss on a plane to Singapore, about 7 other women who'd gotten justice because Adrian Vale decided it mattered, about the security footage that meant she'd never have to wonder if people believed her. Do you have a pen? Adrian pulled one from his desk drawer, slid it across. Elena signed her name on 3 separate pages, her handwriting surprisingly steady. When she finished, Adrian countersigned, then filed the contract in his desk. Welcome to the organization, he said. Now let's get you settled. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. Reese appeared with keys to an apartment 6 blocks from the Obsidian, fully furnished, utilities included, available immediately. A driver took Elena to her old place to pack her essentials, while Reese coordinated movers for everything else. By 6 p.m., Elena was standing in an apartment 3 times the size of her old studio, watching the city lights come on through floor-to-ceiling windows she'd never imagined having. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? It's Adrian. You settled in? Elena looked around the apartment at the leather furniture and granite countertops and bathroom bigger than her old bedroom. This is too much. This is practical. You'll be working late hours. Sometimes you'll need to crash for a few hours between shifts. This location makes that possible. Adrian's voice was matter-of-fact. Besides, you're representing my organization now. Can't have you living somewhere that doesn't reflect that. I don't know how to... Elena's voice cracked. I don't know how to thank you for this. Don't thank me. Earn it. A pause. Get some rest tonight. Tomorrow starts early. He hung up before Elena could respond. She spent the evening unpacking, trying not to think too hard about how completely her life had changed in 36 hours. Her mother called it 8, the facility's evening check-in time, and Elena kept her voice steady while lying about a promotion at work. A better position, better pay. Everything fine. Her mother cried with relief and pride, and Elena had to excuse herself to the bathroom where her own tears wouldn't be audible. By 10, she was exhausted, but too wired to sleep. She stood at the windows, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Marcus Voss was in an airplane seat, flying toward a factory job that would break everything he thought he was. Somewhere else, Gerald Voss was explaining to his wife why their son wouldn't be home for the foreseeable future. And here, in this apartment she hadn't earned yet, Elena Cross was becoming someone new. She should be terrified, should be questioning everything, but all she felt was a strange, fierce certainty that she'd made the right choice. Morning came too fast. Elena's alarm went off at 7:30, and she dragged herself out of bed with ribs that still screamed protest. The bruises had blossomed overnight, purple and yellow spread across her torso like poisonous flowers. She dressed carefully in clothes Reese had left. Dark slacks, a silk blouse, jacket that hid most of the damage. Professional. Polished. Nothing like the girl in the stained uniform from 2 nights ago. The obsidian looked different in daylight. The main floor was closed, chairs stacked on tables, the stage dark. Elena followed Reese's texted directions to a side entrance where a security guard checked her ID against a list and waved her through. The administrative offices were on the 3rd floor, a warren of glass-walled rooms where people moved with quiet efficiency. Reese met her at the elevator. Coffee first, Reese said. Then we'll do introductions. The break room had better coffee than any shop Elena had ever been to. Reese poured 2 cups, added sugar to Elena's without asking. You look like hell, Reese observed. I feel like hell. Good. Means you're honest. Reese leaned against the counter. Adrian told you what you're walking into? Some of it. He tell you about the learning curve? He mentioned it would be steep. Steep is generous. It's a vertical cliff. Reese's smile was brief. But you survived 3 years on the club floor without making enemies. That takes skill. We'll build on that. What exactly am I learning? Everything. How to read a room, how to spot a lie, how to handle people who think they're untouchable, how to move money without leaving traces, how to make someone disappear without anyone asking questions. Reese set down her coffee. Adrian runs a complex operation. You're going to see all of it. Some parts will make you uncomfortable. Push through anyway? Elena nodded, her stomach tight. Reese led her through the offices, introducing her to a dozen people whose names and roles blurred together. Everyone was polite but assessing, like they were waiting to see if she'd last. By 11, Elena's head was spinning with information about shell corporations and import licenses and politicians who needed careful handling. They broke for lunch in Reese's office, salads delivered from somewhere expensive. Questions? Reese asked. About 1,000. Start with the most important one. Elena poked at her salad. What does Adrian actually do? I know he owns the club, knows everyone, has reach. But what's the core business? Information, Reese said simply. Adrian brokers it. People come to him with problems that require discretion. He provides solutions. Sometimes that's connecting them with the right person. Sometimes it's making inconvenient evidence disappear, Sometimes it's applying pressure in ways that don't show up on paper. That's vague? That's intentional. Reese leaned forward. Here's what you need to understand about Adrian Vale. He doesn't deal drugs, doesn't run guns, doesn't touch human trafficking or anything involving kids. Those are hard lines. But everything else? If there's money in it and it doesn't cross those lines, it's negotiable. That's still pretty broad. Welcome to the gray area. Reese's smile was sharp. You'll get used to it. The afternoon was more introductions, more information, more of Elena's worldview expanding in uncomfortable directions. By 5, she was exhausted and overwhelmed and questioning everything again. Adrian found her in the break room, staring at her third cup of coffee. Reese says you're keeping up, he said. Reese is being generous. Reese doesn't do generous. If she says you're keeping up, you are. Adrian poured his own coffee. How are the ribs? Painful. Good. Means you're healing. He studied her face. You look like you want to ask me something. Elena set down her cup. Did you mean it? What you said about hard lines? Every word. Why those specifically? Adrian was quiet for a moment. Because some things can't be made right once they're done. You sell drugs, people can get clean. You move money, it can be traced back. But you hurt a kid? Traffic a person? There's no coming back from that. No amount of money or power that makes it acceptable. His voice was flat, final. I do a lot of things that aren't legal, but I sleep at night because I know what I won't do. It was the most human thing Elena had heard him say. Okay, she said quietly. Okay? I can work with that. Elena met his eyes. I needed to know you had lines. Everyone has lines, Elena. Question is whether they hold when tested. Adrian's smile was brief. Go home. Rest. Tomorrow we'll start the real work. As she left the building, Elena caught her reflection in the glass doors. She looked different somehow. Tired, yes. Bruised, obviously, but also present in a way she hadn't been before. Like she'd stopped trying to disappear. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. This is Marcus. I know what you did. I know you're with him. When I get back, you're going to pay for this. Elena stared at the message, her heart racing. Then she forwarded it to Adrian. His response came within seconds. Handle it. 2 minutes later, her phone rang. Adrian. Well? He said. Well, what? Marcus just threatened you. What are you going to do about it? Elena's mind raced. What can I do? You can panic. You can ignore it. Or you can respond in a way that makes sure he never tries this again. Adrian's voice was calm. Your choice. Elena looked at the message again. At the threat wrapped in impotent rage, Marcus Voss was halfway around the world in a factory, and he was still trying to make her small. Not anymore. She typed a response, her fingers steady. You're in Singapore because Adrian Vale decided you don't get to hurt people anymore. Try coming back. Try contacting me again. See what happens. I'm not afraid of you, Marcus, and I'm not alone. She hit send before she could second-guess it. Adrian laughed quietly through the phone. Good. Now block his number. If he tries another way, forward it to me. But I think he got the message. You knew he'd try this. I knew he'd try something. Bullies always do when they lose power. Adrian's voice warmed slightly. You handled it well. I threatened him. You set a boundary. Different thing. A pause. Get some rest, Elena. Tomorrow will teach you how to make those boundaries stick. That night, Elena slept better than she had in months. The bruises still hurt. The uncertainty still gnawed. But for the first time in 3 years, she wasn't afraid of what tomorrow would bring. She was ready for it. 3 weeks passed before Elena understood what Adrian meant by the real work. The first week was classroom, Reese drilling her on organizational structure, teaching her to spot the tells that meant someone was lying, explaining the financial mechanisms that let money move invisibly through shell companies and offshore accounts. Elena absorbed it all like a woman drinking water after days in the desert, hungry for knowledge that made sense of the world she'd stumbled into. The second week was observation. She shadowed Reese through meetings where men in expensive suits discussed things that sounded legitimate until you understood the subtext. Watched Adrian negotiate a dispute between 2 restaurant owners that turned out to be about territory for an underground gambling operation. sat silent in the corner while a city councilman begged for help making a scandal disappear. By the third week, her ribs had healed enough that she could breathe without wincing. The bruises had faded to green and yellow shadows, and Adrian decided she was ready to get her hands dirty. "There's a situation," he said, catching her in the hallway outside his office. It was late, past midnight, and the obsidian was in full swing below. Bass vibrated through the floors. "I need you to handle it." Elena's stomach tightened. What kind of situation? The kind that requires someone who can read a room and make smart choices under pressure. Adrian handed her a folder. "Client named David Chen owns a chain of import businesses. Someone's been skimming from his shipments. Small amounts, but consistent. He wants it stopped quietly." "What does that have to do with me?" "Chen's throwing a party tonight, private room downstairs. His entire staff will be there, including whoever's stealing from him." Adrian's dark eyes held hers. "Your job is to figure out who it is." "That's it? Just identify them?" "That's everything. Chen handles the rest." Adrian tilted his head. "Reese will be with you, but she's backup. This is your read to make." Elena opened the folder. Inside were photos and brief bios of Chen's 7 employees. She scanned them quickly. Warehouse manager, 2 drivers, an accountant, a logistics coordinator, an assistant, a security guard. All men except the assistant. "How am I supposed to know who's stealing?" "Watch them. Listen. People tell you everything if you pay attention." Adrian checked his watch. "Party started 20 minutes ago. Chen knows you're coming. He'll introduce you as my representative. After that, you're on your own." "What if I get it wrong?" "Then you get it wrong and we handle the fallout." Adrian's expression was unreadable. "But I don't think you will." The confidence in his voice steadied something in Elena's chest. She closed the folder. "Okay, where's Reese?" "Already downstairs." Adrian started to walk away, then paused. "Elena? This matters. Chen's been with me for years. You embarrass me in front of him. We have a problem." "Understood." He left her standing in the hallway, heart racing, wondering what the hell she'd just agreed to. The private room was on the club's 2nd level, smaller than the main floor but still opulent. Dark wood paneling, leather booths, a bar that gleamed under soft lighting. 24 people mingled with drinks and conversation, the energy relaxed but watchful. Reese intercepted Elena at the door. "You read the files?" "Once. Not enough time to memorize." "You'll be fine. Just watch body language." Reese's voice was low. "Chen's the one in the gray suit by the bar. Introduce yourself, then circulate. Don't force conversation. Let them come to you. And if they don't? They will. You're new. They'll want to know who you are." Reese melted back into the crowd with practiced ease. Elena took a breath, checked her reflection in a nearby mirror. Black dress, simple jewelry, hair pulled back. Professional. Unthreatening. She'd learned in the past 3 weeks that being underestimated was an advantage. David Chen was mid-50s, fit, with steel gray hair, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He shook Elena's hand with the grip of someone who'd built his empire from scratch. "Adrian speaks highly of you," Chen said. "We've only been working together a few weeks. Long enough for him to send you here." Chen's smile sharpened. "Which means you're either very good or he's testing you." "Probably both." That earned a surprised laugh. "Honest, I like that." Chen gestured to the room. "My people. Some of them have been with me 10 years. One of them thinks I'm stupid enough not to notice missing inventory." His voice dropped. "Find out which one. I'll handle the rest." "What happens when I do?" "That's not your concern." Chen's eyes were flat. "Just find them." Elena moved into the room, accepting a glass of wine from a passing server she didn't drink from. The files had given her names and faces, but not personalities. She'd have to build those herself. The warehouse manager, Robert Pack, stood near the windows, talking to the security guard. Both men were in their 40s, comfortable with each other in the way of long friendship. Elena drifted closer, catching fragments of conversation about a football game. Nothing suspicious. She moved on. The accountant, James Lynn, sat alone in a booth, nursing what looked like whiskey. His suit was slightly rumpled, tie loosened. He looked tired. When Elena made eye contact, he nodded, but didn't smile. "Long night?" she asked, stopping by his table. "Long year." Lynn took a drink. You're Adrian Vale's new person. Elena Cross. And I'm still figuring out what being his person means. Means you do what he says and don't ask questions. Lynn's voice was bitter. Same as the rest of us. You work for Chen, not Adrian. Chen works for Adrian, which means we all do. Lynn finished his whiskey. But you probably know that already. Elena filed away the resentment in his voice and moved on. The two drivers, Martinez and Wong, were at the bar, laughing too loud, already drunk. The logistics coordinator, a thin, nervous man named Paul Hendricks, hovered near the food table, not eating, just watching everyone else. The assistant, Michelle Park, was the only other woman in the room. Late 20s, expensive clothes, manicured nails wrapped around a martini glass. She intercepted Elena near the bathrooms. You're causing quite a stir, Michelle said. Her smile was sharp. New girl in Adrian Vale's organization. Everyone's wondering what you did to earn that position. I work hard. I'm sure. Michelle's tone suggested she thought Elena had worked on her back. How long have you known Adrian? A few weeks? And he trusts you with Chen already? That's fast. Michelle's eyes traveled over Elena, cataloging and dismissing. Must be nice having that kind of shortcut. The implication was clear. Elena could have gotten angry, could have defended herself. Instead, she smiled. It has its perks. Though I'm still learning the ropes, maybe you could help. You've been with Chen a while, right? Michelle's expression flickered. 3 years. That's impressive. Loyalty like that is rare. Elena lowered her voice. Between us, I'm trying to understand how Chen's operation works. Adrian wants me to be useful, but I don't want to step on toes by asking stupid questions. What kind of questions? Like, how does Chen track inventory? I heard there's been some discrepancies. Nothing major, but enough that Adrian's paying attention. Elena watched Michelle's face carefully. I figured someone with your experience would know how that system works. For just a second, something crossed Michelle's face. Fear, quickly masked. I handle Chen's schedule and correspondence. Warehouse logistics is Robert's department. Of course, my mistake. Elena smiled. Thanks anyway. She moved away, heart racing. That flicker of fear, it meant something. She found Reese near the bar and leaned close. The assistant, Michelle Park. You sure? No. But she reacted wrong when I mentioned inventory discrepancies. Elena kept her voice low. Everyone else has been curious about me. She's been defensive. Defensive how? Implied I slept my way into Adrian's organization. Made it personal. Like she needed me to be less capable than I am. Elena glanced across the room where Michelle was talking to the warehouse manager now, her smile bright and fake. What do you know about her? Reese pulled out her phone, typed quickly. Been with Chen 3 years, started as a temp, worked her way up. Good performance reviews, no red flags in her background check. What's she make? $52,000 a year. Elena thought about Michelle's clothes, designer labels, expensive shoes, jewelry that cost more than a month's salary. She's spending more than she makes. Could be family money, could be a boyfriend, could be stealing from her boss. Elena watched Michelle excuse herself from the conversation and head toward the hallway. I'm going to follow her. Don't confront her, just observe. Elena trailed Michelle down the hallway to the bathrooms. Instead of going inside, Michelle pulled out her phone, checking over her shoulder before dialing. Elena ducked into an alcove, close enough to hear. It's me, Michelle said quietly. We have a problem. Adrian Vale sent someone to Chen's party. She's asking questions about inventory. A pause while whoever was on the other end responded. I don't know if she knows, but she's looking. Michelle's voice rose slightly. I'm telling you, we need to stop, at least until this blows over. Another pause. Fine, but if this goes bad, I'm not taking the fall alone. Michelle hung up and went into the bathroom. Elena pulled back, her mind racing. Michelle wasn't working alone. She had a partner, someone outside Chen's organization who was helping move the stolen goods. She found Reese back in the main room. She's got an accomplice, just made a call to warn them. You get a name? No, but she's scared, and she said we multiple times. Elena glanced around the room. Who here would have access to help her move inventory without getting caught? Reese followed her gaze. Drivers would be obvious. Warehouse manager too, but the smart play would be the security guard. He controls who gets in and out, what gets logged. Elena looked at the security guard. Carl Winters, the file had said. 15 years with Chen. Solid record. Standing by the windows now, alone, checking his phone. Can you pull phone records? Elena asked. Not tonight, but I can flag it for tomorrow. Reese's expression was thoughtful. You want to make the call now or wait for proof? Chen said find who's stealing. He didn't say prove it beyond reasonable doubt. Elena straightened her shoulders. Michelle Park. And I'd bet money the security guard is helping her. That's a big accusation. I know. Elena's stomach was tight. But I'm right. Reese studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, let's tell Chen. David Chen listened without interrupting while Elena laid out her reasoning. The assistant's defensive behavior. The expensive clothes on a modest salary. The phone call mentioning a partner. The logical access points that would require security cooperation. When she finished, Chen was quiet. Then he turned to Reese. Can you verify the phone records? By morning. Do it. Chen looked at Elena. If you're right, I'll handle it. If you're wrong, you're going to explain to Adrian why you wasted my time. Understood. Chen dismissed them both. Elena's hands were shaking as they left the private room. The club's main floor was still packed, music pounding, people dancing like the world wasn't full of small betrayals and quiet violence. You did good, Reese said over the noise. I guessed. You made an educated assessment based on available data. That's the job. Reese steered her toward the exit. Go home, get some sleep. Tomorrow we'll know if you're right. Elena barely slept. She spent the night second-guessing every observation, every assumption, wondering if she'd just destroyed her credibility over a hunch and a phone call she'd partially overheard. Her alarm went off at 7. She was in the shower when her phone rang. Adrian. You were right, he said without preamble. Phone records show 53 calls between Park and Winters over the past 4 months. Text messages discussing shipment schedules and pickup times. Chen's very impressed. Relief flooded through Elena so strongly her knees went weak. What happens now? Chen's handling it. Not our concern. Adrian's tone shifted. You're in the office at 9. We need to talk about your next assignment. He hung up before Elena could ask questions. She arrived at the Obsidian at 8:50, too anxious to be late. Adrian was waiting in his office, along with Reese and a man Elena didn't recognize. Mid-30s, expensive suit, the kind of polished appearance that screamed old money. Elena, this is Richard Voss, Adrian said. Elena's blood turned to ice. Voss. As in Marcus Voss. As in the family that had tried to destroy her and lost. Richard Voss stood, extending his hand. His smile was practiced, political. Miss Cross, I've heard a great deal about you. Elena didn't take his hand. I'm sure you have. My brother made a terrible mistake. Richard's voice was smooth, apologetic. Our family is deeply sorry for what happened. We wanted to meet with you personally to express that. Your family sent Marcus to Singapore to avoid a scandal. That's not the same as being sorry. Something flickered in Richard's eyes. Irritation, quickly masked. Nevertheless, we'd like to make amends. Substantial financial compensation for your pain and suffering, and assurances that nothing like this will ever happen again. Elena looked at Adrian. He was watching her, expression neutral, giving nothing away. Why are you really here? Elena asked Richard. I told you. No. The real reason. Elena crossed her arms. Your family doesn't apologize. You make problems go away. So what do you actually want? Richard's smile faltered. He glanced at Adrian, who remained silent. My father's casinos are struggling, Richard admitted. Some of our permits have been delayed. Inspections that usually take days are taking weeks. We believe Adrian might be able to help expedite things. In exchange for what? For your forgiveness. Your assurance that this matter is settled. Richard's voice hardened slightly. My brother is in Singapore. Our family has been publicly embarrassed. You've been compensated and given a new position. Surely that's enough. Elena felt rage building in her chest like a slow fire. Enough? Your brother beat me unconscious. He did the same thing to 7 other women. And you think a job and some delayed permits is enough? I think continued antagonism serves no one. Richard's mask was slipping now. My family made a mistake. We're paying for it. But there's a limit to how much we're willing to tolerate. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. Richard stood straighter. You're Adrian Vale's newest acquisition. That gives you some protection. But you're not untouchable, Ms. Cross. And my family has resources that extend beyond this city. The room went very quiet. Adrian finally spoke. Get out. Richard turned. Excuse me? I said get out. Adrian's voice was soft, deadly. You came into my building, threatened my people, asked me to help your family after what your brother did. He stood, moving around his desk with predatory grace. The permits aren't delayed, Richard. They're denied. Your casinos are failing because I'm making sure they fail, and they'll keep failing until your family learns that actions have consequences. You can't just, I can do whatever I want. Adrian was close enough now that Richard had to look up to meet his eyes. Your brother is in Singapore because I showed mercy. You just made me regret that choice. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to tell your father that the Voss family's problems are just beginning, and you're never going to speak to Elena Cross again. Clear? Richard's face was red. My father won't stand for this. Your father will do exactly nothing because he knows what I have on your family. The assault videos. The NDAs your lawyers forced other victims to sign. The hush money payments that violate about 6 different laws. Adrian's smile was ice. You want to go to war over permits? I'll bury your entire family. Test me. For a long moment, Richard just stared. Then he grabbed his briefcase and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Elena realized she'd been holding her breath. She let it out slowly. You okay? Reese asked. I think so. Elena looked at Adrian. Was any of that true? About the permits and the casinos? Every word. Adrian returned to his desk. Gerald Voss thought sending Marcus away was enough. Thought I'd let it go after that. He was wrong. You're destroying their business because of me. I'm destroying their business because they threatened you, in my building, while trying to negotiate. Adrian's expression was hard. That kind of disrespect doesn't get rewarded. What happens now? Now they learn what it costs to cross me. Adrian pulled out his phone, typed something. And you learn what it means when I say you're under my protection. That's not just words, Elena. That's a promise. The casual certainty in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it felt like armor. Richard said I'm your newest acquisition, Elena said quietly. Richard's an idiot. Adrian looked up. You're not an acquisition. You're part of my organization. There's a difference. What difference? Acquisitions get used and discarded. My people get protected and valued. Adrian set down his phone. You did good work last night with Chen. You're learning fast, and you're proving you can handle pressure. That matters to me. The praise settled warm in Elena's chest. What's the next assignment? There's a city councilman who's been making noise about closing the Obsidian, claims we're a public nuisance, wants to score political points by going after me. Adrian pulled up a file on his computer. I need you to find out who's really behind it, because Councilman Torres doesn't have the spine or the imagination to come after me on his own. You want me to investigate a politician? I want you to have dinner with him tomorrow night. Make him think you're interested in his campaign. Get him talking. Adrian's smile was brief. You're good at reading people. Use that. What if he won't talk to me? He will. I'm making a donation to his re-election fund, big enough that he'll take the meeting. Adrian forwarded her the file. Read up on him tonight. Reese will brief you tomorrow on what questions to ask. Elena took the assignment back to her apartment, spent the evening learning everything she could about Councilman Torres. He was 48, married with 2 kids, had been in office 6 years. His platform was cleaning up downtown, which apparently meant targeting clubs and bars that didn't fit his vision of the neighborhood. The Obsidian was his biggest target, but there were others. Elena made notes, looking for patterns, trying to understand what he really wanted versus what he was saying publicly. Her phone rang at 11. Adrian. You're still working, he said. How did you know? Because you're thorough. It's one of your better qualities. A pause. I wanted to check in. Today was intense. I'm fine. You're allowed to not be fine. Adrian's voice was quieter than usual. Richard Voss showing up like that, threatening you. That wasn't part of the plan. You knew he'd come? I knew the family would try something eventually. I didn't expect them to be stupid enough to do it in my office. Adrian exhaled. For what it's worth, what I said to him was true. They're not getting their permits back, and if they push this, I will destroy them. Because of me. Because they earned it. Adrian was quiet for a moment. You're not a burden, Elena. You're not something I'm protecting out of obligation. You work for me. That makes you mine to defend, and I take that seriously. The possessiveness in his voice sent heat through Elena's chest. I'm starting to understand that. Good. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be complicated. He was right. Dinner with Councilman Torres was at an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind with white tablecloths and a wine list thicker than a phone book. Elena wore a navy dress that was professional but flattering, her hair down, minimal jewelry. The goal was to look interested but not calculating. Torres was already at the table when she arrived. He stood, shaking her hand with the firm grip of someone who'd practiced the gesture. Ms. Cross, thank you for meeting with me. Thank you for making time in your schedule. Elena smiled. I know you're busy with the campaign. Always time for supporters of good governance. Torres gestured to her chair. Adrian Vale speaks highly of you. Says you're interested in community development. It was a lie, but Elena ran with it. I think downtown has potential, but it needs the right kind of leadership to realize that. Exactly my platform. Torres launched into his standard speech about revitalizing the neighborhood, making it family-friendly, pushing out elements that didn't serve the community vision. Elena listened, nodding in the right places, asking questions that made her seem engaged. She waited until the main course arrived before pushing deeper. The Obsidian's been getting a lot of attention in your campaign, she said carefully. It seems personal. Torres's expression hardened. Places like that attract the wrong element. Crime. Drugs. They're a blight. But the Obsidian has been there for 15 years. Why target it now? Because now I have the council votes to actually do something about it. Who convinced you that you had the votes? Elena kept her tone curious, not accusatory. Because 6 months ago, you were focused on affordable housing. This campaign against clubs is new. Torres took a drink of wine, and Elena saw the calculation in his eyes. He was deciding how much to tell her. Between us, he said finally, there are people with interests in that neighborhood, people who'd prefer the Obsidian's property for other developments. They've made it worth my while to help that happen. What kind of developments? Luxury condos, high-end retail, the kind of thing that brings in tax revenue and respectable residents. Torres leaned forward. Adrian Vale's had his run. It's time for the neighborhood to evolve. Elena's mind raced. Someone was using Torres as a weapon against Adrian, someone with enough money and influence to make it worth the councilman's political risk. Who are these people, she asked. The ones interested in the property? Torres smiled. That's confidential, but let's just say they have very deep pockets and very long reach. Deeper than Adrian Vale's? Let's hope we don't have to find out. Torres's smile didn't reach his eyes. Now, you mentioned a donation to my campaign. Elena made the appropriate noises about supporting his vision, promised to have Adrian's people send the check, and excused herself as soon as politely possible. She called Adrian from her car. Someone's trying to take the Obsidian, she said without preamble. They're using Torres as a front. He mentioned luxury condos and developers with deep pockets. Did he give you names? No, but he's confident he has the council votes, which means whoever's behind this has been working multiple angles. Good work. Adrian's voice was tight. Come to the office. We need to run down the property records and see who's been buying around the club. The next 3 days were a blur of research and surveillance. Elena, Reese, and 2 other members of Adrian's team traced property purchases within a 6-block radius of the Obsidian. A pattern emerged. Shell companies buying up buildings and lots, all traced back to the same investment firm. Meridian Development Group. Who owns it? Elena asked, staring at the computer screen. Reese pulled up the corporate filings. Officially, a consortium of investors. But the largest shareholder is... She stopped. Oh, hell. What? Gerald Voss. Elena's stomach dropped. Marcus's father. The same. Reese looked at Adrian. He's been assembling property around the Obsidian for 8 months, since before the Marcus situation. So this isn't retaliation, Adrian said slowly. This was always the plan. They wanted my property. Marcus assaulting Elena just accelerated the timeline. Or gave them extra motivation, Elena said. Richard tried to negotiate. When that failed, they went back to the original plan. Push you out through the council. Adrian's expression was carved stone. They're going to regret this. Over the next week, Elena watched Adrian dismantle the Voss family's development plans with surgical precision. The council votes Torres thought he had suddenly evaporated when 3 council members received anonymous packages containing evidence of their own misconduct. Torres himself woke up to news crews asking about campaign finance violations that Elena had helped uncover. Meridian Development Group found their financing mysteriously pulled, their construction permits denied, their shell companies investigated for fraud, and Gerald Voss received a personal visit from Adrian that Elena wasn't part of, but heard about afterward. Whatever was said, the Voss family withdrew every property offer, dissolved Meridian Development, and issued a public statement about pursuing opportunities in other markets. It's over? Elena asked when Adrian returned to the office. It's over. Adrian poured himself a whiskey. Gerald Voss understands now that coming after me has consequences. His son's in Singapore. His casinos are failing. And his development company just collapsed. He won't try again. What did you say to him? That family is everything, and if he wants his to survive, he'll leave mine alone. Adrian's smile was cold. He agreed. Elena sat with that, processing. In less than 2 months, she'd gone from invisible girl in a uniform to someone important enough that a powerful family had tried to use city politics to hurt the man protecting her. It was dizzying and terrifying and strangely exhilarating. You called me family, she said quietly. Adrian looked up. You work for me. You're loyal. You've proven yourself. He met her eyes. That makes you family, whether you like it or not. Something warm and complicated bloomed in Elena's chest. She'd spent her whole life alone, her and her mother against the world. The idea of belonging to something larger, something fierce and protective, was foreign and intoxicating. I like it, she admitted. Adrian's expression softened slightly. Good, because the real work is just getting started. The real work, as it turned out, meant Elena learning just how deep Adrian's world ran beneath the city's polished surface. 2 months in, she'd proven herself capable enough that Adrian stopped having Reese shadow her every move. She handled client meetings alone, negotiated disputes, collected debts that people thought they could avoid. She was good at it, better than she'd expected. The skills she'd developed staying invisible translated well to reading rooms and knowing when to push and when to let silence do the work. But she was also starting to understand the cost. It was a Thursday night when everything shifted. Elena was in Adrian's office, reviewing contracts for a new import deal, when the door opened without warning. A man she'd never seen before walked in, mid-40s, expensive suit slightly rumpled, blood on his knuckles. We have a problem, the man said. Adrian looked up from his laptop. How bad? Devon Marsh is dead. The name meant nothing to Elena, but Adrian's expression went flat and cold in a way she'd learned to recognize. Dangerous. Where? Adrian asked. Warehouse on 5th. His brother found him an hour ago. And Garrett? Losing his mind. Says he knows who did it. Wants permission to handle it. Adrian closed his laptop. Tell Garrett I'll be there in 20 minutes, and get someone to secure the scene before police show up. The man nodded and left. Adrian stood, reaching for his jacket. Who's Devon Marsh? Elena asked. Someone who worked for me. Good kid. Kept his head down. Adrian's jaw was tight. If Garrett's right about who killed him, tonight's going to get messy. Do you want me to... Stay here. This isn't something you need to see. Elena stood. You said I was part of this. Part of your organization. You are. Then let me do my job. She kept her voice steady. You're going to a situation where someone's angry and grieving and wants blood. You need someone who can read the room and keep it from exploding. That's what I do. Adrian studied her for a long moment. This isn't like handling Chen's party or investigating Torres. This is violent, raw. You see something tonight, You can't unsee it. I understand. Do you? Adrian moved closer. Because once you cross this line, Elena, there's no going back to who you were. You'll know things, see things, be complicit in things that will change how you sleep at night. Elena thought about the girl she'd been 3 months ago. Invisible. Afraid. Getting beaten in storage rooms by men who thought she didn't matter. That girl was already gone. Had been gone since the moment she whispered Marcus Voss's name in a hallway. I'm already across the line, she said quietly. I helped you destroy the Voss family's business. Watched you end careers and ruin reputations. This isn't different. It's just more direct. Adrian's expression was unreadable. Then he nodded once. Get your jacket. And Elena, stay close to me. Don't wander off. Don't talk unless I tell you to. Understood? Understood. The warehouse was in the industrial district, a part of the city Elena had never been to. Abandoned factories and rusted equipment, the kind of place where screams wouldn't carry. Adrian's car pulled up next to 3 others already parked outside. 2 men stood guard at the door. Inside, the warehouse was mostly empty, except for a group of people clustered near the back. Elena followed Adrian, her heart hammering. The overhead lights threw harsh shadows across concrete floors stained with things she didn't want to identify. Garrett Marsh was easy to spot. Mid-20s, built like he spent his life in the gym, face twisted with rage and grief. He stood over something covered with a tarp. Elena's stomach turned when she realized what was under it. Adrian, Garrett's voice cracked. They killed him, shot him in the chest and left him here like garbage. Adrian moved to the tarp, crouched down, lifted the corner. Elena forced herself to look. Devin Marsh had been young, early 20s at most. The gunshot wound was visible through his shirt. His eyes were still open. Adrian lowered the tarp gently. Who did this? Tommy Ricci's crew had to be. Garrett's hands were shaking. Devin was making collections in their territory. They've been pushing back for weeks, saying we don't have the right to operate there. Did Devin report the pushback? He mentioned it, said it was handled. Garrett's voice rose. But clearly it wasn't handled. They killed my brother over territory that's been yours for 10 years. Adrian stood. Where's Ricci now? His club on 8th, probably celebrating. Garrett looked at Adrian with desperate eyes. Give me 10 men. Let me end this. No. Adrian, I said no. Adrian's voice cut sharp. You go in there hot. You start a war. And wars are expensive and messy and get people killed. He pulled out his phone. I'll handle Ricci. Handle him how? By talking? Garrett's voice was bitter. Your way takes too long. My brother is dead. That requires immediate response. Your brother is dead, and I'm sorry for that, but throwing your life away on revenge doesn't bring him back. Adrian's tone was hard. You work for me, which means you follow my orders. Stand down. For a moment, Elena thought Garrett might refuse. His whole body was coiled tension, rage looking for a target. Then he stepped back, hands fisted at his sides. How long? Garrett asked. 24 hours. Ricci will understand what he's done and what it costs. Adrian looked at the men standing nearby. Get Devin somewhere appropriate. Contact his family. I'll cover funeral expenses. He turned and walked toward the exit. Elena followed, her mind racing. Behind them, she heard Garrett's ragged breathing, the quiet conversation of men dealing with death. Outside, Adrian leaned against his car and pulled out a cigarette. Elena had never seen him smoke before. You okay? He asked without looking at her. Should I be? Probably not. Adrian lit the cigarette, inhaled. That was someone's brother, someone's son, 23 years old, dead because he was in the wrong place doing a job I assigned him. It's not your fault. It's absolutely my fault. Adrian's voice was flat. Devin worked for me. That made him a target. I knew Ricci was getting aggressive. Should have pulled my people out of that territory until I dealt with it. Instead, I let it slide. And now a kid is dead. Elena had never heard Adrian second-guess himself before. It was unsettling. What are you going to do? She asked. What I should have done 3 weeks ago. Adrian finished the cigarette, crushed it under his heel. Remind Tommy Ricci why people don't cross me. He made 3 phone calls on the drive back to the Obsidian. Short conversations, clipped instructions. By the time they arrived, his expression had settled back into the controlled mask Elena was used to. In his office, Adrian poured 2 whiskeys and handed one to Elena. She took it, her hand steadier than she expected. Tommy Ricci's been moving drugs through the east side for 5 years, Adrian said. He's good at it, keeps a low profile, doesn't cause problems, but lately he's been expanding, testing boundaries, thinking maybe I'm not paying attention. Are you going to kill him? The question came out blunt. Adrian looked at her over his glass. Do you think I should? I don't know. Elena took a drink, the whiskey burning. Devon's dead. Garrett wants blood. If you don't do something, you look weak. And if I do too much, I start a war with Ricci's suppliers. Adrian sat down. This is the balance, Elena. Every action has consequences. Every choice creates ripples. So what's the right choice? There isn't one. There's just the choice that costs the least. Adrian set down his glass. Ricci dies. His operation fractures. Smaller crews fight over the territory. Violence spreads. People who have nothing to do with this get hurt. He pulled up something on his computer. Or I make an example that stops short of killing him, but makes it clear what happens when you touch my people. What kind of example? Adrian turned the screen toward her. It showed financial records, accounts, transactions, a web of money moving through shell companies. Ricci's been skimming from his suppliers, small amounts but consistent. They don't know yet because he's good at hiding it. Adrian's smile was cold. But if someone were to make sure they found out, along with evidence that Ricci's been working with federal agents, his own people would handle the problem for me. Is he working with federal agents? No, but I can make it look convincing. Adrian pulled the screen back. He'll be dead within a week. His crew will scatter. The territory opens up for someone more reasonable, and I never have to fire a shot. Elena sat with that. It was elegant and brutal and completely deniable. Adrian would destroy a man's life and reputation, get him killed by his own people, and walk away clean. You've done this before, she said. Many times. Adrian met her eyes. This is what I do, Elena. I don't get my hands bloody if I can avoid it, but I make sure problems get solved, permanently. And Devon? Garrett wanted immediate response. Garrett will get his response, just not the one he wanted. Adrian checked his watch. By morning, everyone in this city will know that touching my people carries consequences. Ricci's destruction will be the message. What about Devon's family? I'll handle it. Funeral costs. Death benefit for his mother. Job for his brother if he wants it. Adrian's voice softened slightly. Taking care of the living is part of the responsibility. Elena finished her whiskey. Can I ask you something? Always. Do you feel anything when you do this? When you end someone? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. I feel responsible. These are my decisions, my orders. If that makes me a monster, then I'm a monster who takes care of his people. He stood. You should go home. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be busy. What happens tomorrow? Ricci's suppliers get an anonymous package, and you and I have a meeting with the mayor about some permits he owes me. Adrian's smile was brief. Business as usual. Elena left the Obsidian with her head spinning. She'd known Adrian was dangerous, had watched him destroy the Voss family's ambitions with cold efficiency. But tonight was different. Tonight someone had died. And tomorrow someone else would die because Adrian had decided it solved more problems than it created. She should be horrified, should be questioning everything. Instead, she found herself understanding the math. Devon Marsh was dead. Garrett wanted revenge. If Adrian did nothing, he looked weak and more people would test him. If he overreacted, he started a war. So he found the surgical option, the one that sent a message while minimizing collateral damage. It was ruthless. But it was also practical. Elena slept poorly that night. She kept seeing Devon's face under that tarp, kept hearing Garrett's voice crack with grief, kept thinking about the choice Adrian had made and wondering if she would have made the same one. Morning came gray and cold. Elena dragged herself to the office, running on coffee and nerves. Reese was waiting with updates. Ricci's suppliers got their package at 6 a.m., Reese said. They're not happy. Word is they're pulling him in for a conversation sometime today. How long until he's dead? 24 hours. Maybe less if they're efficient. Reese studied Elena's face. Adrian said you were at the warehouse last night. I was. How are you handling it? Elena thought about lying, decided honesty was easier. I don't know yet. Ask me in a week when I've processed. Fair enough. Reese handed her a folder. Mayor's office, 10 a.m. Adrian wants you there to take notes and observe. The mayor's been dragging his feet on some permits we need. Today's the deadline for cooperation. The mayor's office was all polished wood and expensive art. Mayor Richard Chen, no relation to David Chen, was 55 and had the smooth confidence of someone who'd never been truly challenged. He smiled when Elena and Adrian entered, but his eyes were calculating. Adrian, good to see you. The mayor's handshake was firm. And this must be your new associate I've heard about. Elena Cross. Adrian settled into a chair without being invited. We're here about the permits. Ah, yes. The permits. Mayor Chen returned to his desk. There's been some delays in processing. Nothing personal, just bureaucratic slowness. It's been 3 months, Adrian said flatly. That's not slowness. That's obstruction. That's city government. The mayor spread his hands. My hands are tied. The Planning Commission has concerns about traffic impact, noise complaints. The Planning Commission has concerns about the donation you promised them that hasn't materialized. Adrian pulled out his phone, tapped something, slid it across the desk. I have documentation of the conversation where you agreed to fast-track my permits in exchange for support on your education initiative. The mayor's smile tightened. I don't recall that conversation. Then let me refresh your memory. Adrian gestured to Elena. She pulled out her tablet, loaded an audio file. Her heart was pounding, but she kept her expression neutral as voices filled the room. The mayor's voice, clearly identifiable, discussing terms, promising permits within 30 days, asking for $250,000 in campaign contributions routed through various channels. Adrian's voice, agreeing. The recording ended. The mayor's face had gone pale. Where did you get that? From the conversation we had 3 months ago in this office. Adrian took his phone back. I record everything, just in case memories get fuzzy. That's illegal. So is soliciting campaign contributions in exchange for official actions. Adrian's smile was sharp. But I'm not interested in legal technicalities. I'm interested in getting my permits, which you're going to approve by end of business today. And if I don't, then this recording goes to the State Attorney General, the FBI, and every news outlet in the state. Your career ends, your reputation ends, and you spend the next 5 years explaining to federal prosecutors why you thought corruption was a good idea. The mayor's hands clenched. You can't do this. I absolutely can. And I will, unless I have signed permits on my desk by 5 p.m. Adrian stood. Your choice, Richard. Cooperate, and this conversation never happened. Refuse, and everything you've built burns. Elena watched the mayor's face cycle through rage, fear, and resignation. It was the same pattern she'd seen with Gerald Voss, with Tora, with everyone who thought they could outmaneuver Adrian Vale. Fine, the mayor said finally. You'll have your permits. Excellent. Adrian buttoned his jacket. Pleasure doing business with you. They left the mayor's office in silence. In the car, Elena finally spoke. You recorded that conversation 3 months ago knowing you might need leverage later. I record every conversation that might matter later. Adrian glanced at her. Rule number 1 in this business, always have insurance. People's memories are selective. Recordings aren't. Is that legal? In this state? As long as one party consents, yes. And I always consent to recording myself. Adrian's smile was brief. The trick is making sure the other person doesn't know they're being recorded. Elena thought about every conversation she'd had in the past 3 months. Have you recorded me? Every word since the night I found you in that hallway. Adrian said it matter-of-factly. But those recordings are insurance for you, not against you. If anyone ever questions what happened with Marcus Voss, I have documentation of everything. Your statements, the doctor's findings, all of it. It should have felt like violation. Instead, it felt like protection. What happens if the mayor doesn't deliver the permits? Elena asked. He will. He's not stupid. Adrian checked his phone. But if he doesn't, the recording goes public, and we move to Plan B. What's Plan B? Find someone more cooperative to run against him in the next election and make sure they win. Adrian's tone was casual, like he was discussing dinner plans. I've done it before. The current mayor is actually my third choice. The first 2 didn't work out. The casual admission of manipulating city politics should have shocked her. Instead, Elena found herself impressed by the long-term planning. Adrian didn't just react to problems. He built systems that prevented them. Can I ask you something? Elena said. You keep asking permission to ask questions. Just ask. Last night you said taking care of the living is part of the responsibility. What did you mean? Adrian was quiet for a moment. Devin Marsh died working for me. That makes his family my responsibility. His mother gets a death benefit. His brother gets a job if he wants it. Any debts Devin had, I cover them. It doesn't bring him back, but it means his death doesn't destroy everyone who loved him. That's more than most employers would do. Most employers don't operate in worlds where their employees get shot. Adrian's jaw tightened. I demand loyalty from my people. Absolute loyalty. The price of that is I take care of them when things go wrong. It's not generosity, it's the cost of doing business. Elena understood. It was the same reason Adrian had covered her mother's medical bills, had given her the apartment, had destroyed anyone who threatened her. Not because he was kind, but because protecting his people was how he maintained their loyalty. It was transactional, but it was also more reliable than kindness. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. You need to see this, it read. Attached was a photo of Tommy Ricci being dragged into a van by 3 men. The timestamp was 15 minutes ago. Elena showed Adrian. He glanced at it, nodded once. That was faster than expected, he said. Ricci's suppliers don't waste time. Is he dead yet? Not yet. They'll want to confirm the federal agent story first, make sure they're not being played. Adrian pulled into the Obsidian's parking garage. By tonight, it'll be done. And everyone will know not to touch your people. That's the idea. Adrian killed the engine. You did good today with the mayor, stayed calm under pressure, knew when to speak and when to let the recording do the work. The praise warmed something in Elena's chest. Thank you. Don't thank me. You earned it. Adrian got out of the car. Come on, we have work to do. The rest of the day passed in meetings and phone calls. Elena watched Adrian orchestrate a dozen different situations with the same cold efficiency he'd shown the mayor. He was always 3 steps ahead, always with backup plans, always with leverage that made cooperation the only rational choice. By 6 p.m., the permits had arrived via courier. The mayor had folded completely. By 8 p.m., word had spread that Tommy Ricci was dead. Shot 3 times by his own suppliers after they'd confirmed he'd been skimming and cooperating with federal agents. His crew had scattered. The territory he'd controlled was suddenly open. By 10 p.m., Adrian had placed one of his own people in charge of that territory. Smooth transition, no power vacuum, no violence. Elena sat in Adrian's office, watching him close out the day's business with the same attention to detail he gave everything else. You're good at this, she said. Adrian looked up. At what? Running the board, seeing all the pieces, knowing which ones to move and when. It's just pattern recognition. Once you understand how people think, what they want, what they fear, the rest is logistics. Adrian closed his laptop. You're getting better at it too. I'm trying. You're succeeding. Adrian stood, moved to the windows. The city spread out below, lights glittering like scattered diamonds. In 3 months, you've gone from invisible to indispensable. That's not luck. That's capability. Elena joined him at the window. Do you ever regret it? This life? Every day. The honesty in Adrian's voice surprised her. But regret doesn't change reality. This is who I am. This is what I'm good at. And someone has to keep this city's underbelly from eating itself. Why does it have to be you? Because I'm better at it than anyone else. Adrian's smile was brief. And because I protect my people. That matters to me more than being legitimate. Elena looked at her reflection in the glass. The woman staring back was harder than the girl who'd whispered a name in a hallway 3 months ago. More confident. More dangerous. More alive. What happens next? She asked. Next, you keep learning, keep proving yourself, keep becoming whoever you're meant to be. Adrian turned to face her. You're not done transforming yet, Elena. This is just the beginning. He was right. She could feel it. The pull of becoming something more than she'd ever imagined. Something that couldn't be broken or beaten or made invisible. Something worth fearing. And for the first time in her life, Elena wasn't afraid of that person. She was ready to meet her. 6 months after that night in the warehouse, Elena stood in front of her bathroom mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. The bruises were long gone. Her ribs had healed, but the changes ran deeper than physical scars. She carried herself differently now, spine straight, chin up, eyes that met challenges instead of avoiding them. The girl who'd kept her head down and survived in the margins had been replaced by someone who walked into rooms and made people notice. Her phone buzzed. Adrian. My office, 1 hour, where's something impressive? Elena texted back a question mark. You'll see. She chose a charcoal suit that Reese had helped her pick out last month, tailored perfectly, expensive enough to signal status without being ostentatious. The kind of armor that said she belonged in rooms with powerful people. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek bun. Minimal jewelry. She'd learned that in Adrian's world, less was always more. The Obsidian was quieter than usual when she arrived. Most of the staff hadn't come in yet. She found Adrian in his office with Reese and 2 men Elena didn't recognize. Both were older, dressed in suits that screamed old money and political power. Elena, Adrian gestured her in. Perfect timing. This is Senator Whitmore and his chief of staff, David Park. The senator stood, extending his hand. Elena shook it, noting the firm grip and assessing gaze. He was sizing her up the same way she was cataloging him. Ms. Cross, Adrian speaks very highly of you. He's generous with his praise. He's never generous about anything. Senator Whitmore's smile was brief. Which means you've earned whatever he said. Elena glanced at Adrian, who was watching the exchange with that unreadable expression she'd learned meant he was pleased. The senator has a problem, Adrian said. I told him you could solve it. What kind of problem? Whitmore settled back into his chair. I'm running for governor. The primary is in 8 months. My main opponent is a congressman named Robert Hayes. Clean record, good family, strong polling numbers. He's also being bankrolled by interests that would prefer I not win. What kind of interests? The kind that don't like my stance on environmental regulation and corporate accountability. Whitmore's voice was dry. Hayes looks perfect on paper. War veteran, successful business owner, devoted husband. But perfect people don't exist. Everyone has something they'd rather keep hidden. Elena understood immediately. You want me to find out what Hayes is hiding? I want you to find out if he's hiding anything worth knowing about. Whitmore leaned forward. I don't do dirty campaigns. I don't manufacture scandals. But if there's legitimate information about Hayes that voters deserve to know, I want to bring it to light through proper channels. It was a careful dance of language. Whitmore wanted opposition research but needed plausible deniability about how it was obtained. Why me? Elena asked. Because Adrian says you're perceptive, discreet, and have a talent for getting people to trust you. Whitmore's gaze was steady. And because if you find something, I need it handled in a way that doesn't trace back to my campaign. Elena looked at Adrian. What do you think? I think the senator is right that Hayes is too clean. Nobody's that perfect. Adrian's voice was matter-of-fact. And I think this is good experience for you. Political opposition research is a skill set you should develop. How long do I have? 6 weeks, Whitmore said. After that, it's too late to change the narrative. Elena considered. 6 weeks to investigate a congressman with resources and connections. It was ambitious and risky, and exactly the kind of challenge she'd been craving. I'll need access to Hayes' schedule, social circles, financial records if possible. David will provide everything we have legally. Whitmore gestured to his chief of staff. Anything beyond that is your discretion. I don't need to know methods. The meeting ended with handshakes and promises. After the senator left, Elena stayed behind with Adrian and Reese. You're throwing me into politics now, Elena asked. Politics is where the real power lives, Adrian said. You've proven you can handle business disputes and territorial conflicts. This is the next level. What if I can't find anything? Then you tell Whitmore that and he fights the campaign on policy. Adrian shrugged. But my instinct says Hayes has something. People who look that perfect are usually compensating for something ugly underneath. Your instinct or your cynicism? In my experience, they're the same thing. Adrian pulled up files on his computer. I'm assigning you 2 people to help. Jake handles digital forensics. If there's anything in Hayes' online presence, he'll find it. And Natalie does financial analysis. Between the 3 of you, you'll cover most angles. Over the next 3 weeks, Elena learned more about opposition research than she'd thought possible. Jake was a quiet man in his 30s who could extract information from social media, deleted emails, and digital footprints most people didn't know they were leaving. Natalie was sharp-eyed and relentless, tracing money through shell companies and charitable foundations with the precision of a surgeon. They started with the obvious, Hayes' public record, voting history, Business dealings. Everything checked out. He was exactly what he appeared to be. War hero, successful restaurant chain owner, married 22 years to his college sweetheart, 2 kids in good schools, no scandals, no controversies. He's boring, Jake said, staring at his laptop. Seriously, this guy's entire digital presence is wholesome family man and patriotic veteran. It's like he's AI generated. Nobody's this clean, Natalie muttered, reviewing financial statements. There has to be something. Elena agreed. She'd spent 6 months learning that everyone had secrets. The question was finding which ones mattered. What about the restaurants? Elena asked. How'd he build that business? Natalie pulled up corporate filings. Started with 1 location 15 years ago. Grew to 12 locations across 3 states. Revenue last year was $48 million, all legitimate as far as I can tell. Who were his initial investors? Mostly personal savings and bank loans, but Natalie squinted at the screen. There was one angel investor, a limited liability company called Cornerstone Holdings. Put in $200,000 in the early days. Who owns Cornerstone? Let me check. Natalie's fingers flew across the keyboard. Shell company, registered in Delaware, owned by another shell company, and another. This is deliberately obscured. Elena leaned forward. How far back can you trace it? Give me a few days. I'll need to pull corporate records from 3 different states. 3 days later, Natalie had an answer. Cornerstone Holdings was owned by a network of shell companies that eventually traced back to a single individual, Vincent Caruso. The name made Elena's stomach drop. Who's Vincent Caruso? Jake asked. Organized crime, Elena said quietly. Adrian's mentioned him. Runs gambling and loan sharking operations out of the East Coast. Very connected. Very dangerous. So Hayes' restaurant business was partially funded by mob money? Jake's eyes widened. That's huge. Maybe. Elena's mind was racing. Or maybe it's a coincidence. One angel investor 15 years ago doesn't prove Hayes knew where the money came from. Except Caruso doesn't invest in legitimate businesses unless there's a reason. Natalie pulled up more files. And look at this. 3 of Hayes' restaurant locations are in neighborhoods where Caruso operates. Prime real estate, below market rent. He's laundering money through the restaurants, Elena said slowly, or providing fronts for Caruso's operations. We need proof, Jake said. Right now this is just suspicious. We need something concrete. Elena thought for a moment. Can you access Hayes' personal email? Not legally. Can you do it anyway? Jake hesitated. Adrian would have my head if I got caught. Adrian wants results. I'll take responsibility. Elena met his eyes. Can you do it? Yeah, give me 48 hours. What Jake found in Hayes' emails was devastating. Correspondence with Caruso going back 12 years. Discussions about using restaurant locations for off-the-books gambling. References to cleaning money through legitimate revenue streams. And most damning, emails from 3 months ago about Hayes' congressional campaign, with Caruso promising financial support in exchange for favorable votes on gambling legislation. This is it, Elena said, reviewing the files. This is what Whitmore needs. How do we get it to him without admitting we hacked Hayes' email? Natalie asked. We don't give him the emails directly. We give him enough information to know where to look and let his people find it through legal channels. Elena was already drafting a summary. Point them toward the shell companies, the restaurant locations, the voting record on gambling bills. Make it look like standard opposition research that raised questions. And if they can't confirm it legally, then we leak it anonymously to a journalist who will. Elena looked up. Hayes is taking mob money while running for governor. That's not a secret we're manufacturing. That's legitimate information voters need to know. She presented the findings to Adrian before taking them to Whitmore. He reviewed the evidence with his usual careful attention. This is solid work, Adrian said. Caruso's going to be furious when this goes public. Is that a problem? For Hayes, absolutely. For us? Adrian shrugged. Caruso and I have an understanding. We don't operate in each other's territories. But he's a pragmatist. He'll cut Hayes loose rather than take the heat. What about Whitmore? Whitmore gets his scandal. Hayes drops out of the race or loses badly, and you get credit for pulling off a complex investigation in 3 weeks. Adrian's smile was brief. Well done, Elena. The praise settled warm in her chest. What happens next? Next, you give Whitmore the summary. Let him decide how to use it. And then Adrian pulled out a folder she hadn't seen before. Then we talk about your future. Elena took the folder. Inside was a contract. Her heart started racing as she read the title. Partner? Limited partner. 5% equity in the organization. Seat at the table for major decisions. Significant increase in compensation. Adrian leaned back. You've proven yourself. 6 months ago you were surviving. Now you're thriving. This makes it official. Elena stared at the contract, her hands trembling slightly. Partner meant she wasn't just working for Adrian anymore. She was part of the structure, part of the empire. I don't know what to say. Say yes or say no, but decide quickly. I don't make this offer twice. Elena thought about the girl she'd been 6 months ago. Invisible. Afraid. Getting beaten in storage rooms by men who thought she didn't matter. That girl would have been terrified of this offer, would have seen the danger and the compromise and run. But that girl was dead. Had died in a hallway when she whispered a name and chose to stop being prey. Yes, Elena said. I'm in. She gave the Hayes information to Senator Whitmore the next day. He reviewed it with his legal team, confirmed what they could through public records, and then made a strategic decision. Rather than leak it to the press, he confronted Hayes directly in a televised debate. Elena watched from Adrian's office as Whitmore methodically destroyed Hayes' campaign in real time. The restaurant funding, the shell companies, the suspicious voting record on gambling legislation. Hayes tried to deflect, but Whitmore had done his homework. By the end of the debate, Hayes looked rattled and defensive. 2 days later, federal investigators announced they were looking into Hayes' business dealings. 3 days after that, Hayes dropped out of the governor's race. Whitmore called personally to thank Elena. You changed the trajectory of this campaign. I won't forget it. Just doing my job. Well, you're very good at it. Whitmore paused. If I win in November, I'll need people I can trust in my administration. Keep that in mind. After he hung up, Elena sat with the implications. 6 months ago, she'd been a server in a club. Now a senator running for governor was offering her a future in politics. You're not actually considering his offer, are you? Reese asked from the doorway. Should I be? You'd be miserable in legitimate politics. Too many rules, too much performance. Reese came in, sat down. Besides, Adrian would lose his mind if you left. He'd survive. Would he? Reese's expression was knowing. You've become important to him, Elena. More than just a useful employee. He trusts you. That's rare. Elena thought about the past 6 months, the late nights in Adrian's office, the way he'd protected her from the Voss family, the careful way he'd built her up from broken to dangerous. It wasn't friendship exactly. Adrian didn't do friendship, but it was something. I'm not going anywhere, Elena said. This is where I belong. The partnership became official the following week. Adrian held a small gathering at the Obsidian, just the core team. Reese was there, along with the key people who ran various aspects of the organization. Elena signed the papers with a pen that probably cost more than her first month's salary had been. To Elena, Adrian said, raising his glass, who went from invisible to indispensable in 6 months. Welcome to the partnership. Everyone drank. Elena felt the weight of their gazes, respect, curiosity, some wariness. She was young, new, unproven in their eyes. But she had Adrian's backing, and that mattered more than tenure. Later, after everyone else had left, Elena found herself alone with Adrian on the balcony overlooking the club. Music drifted up from below. The city stretched out around them, alive with possibility. How does it feel? Adrian asked. Surreal. 6 months ago, I was cleaning tables. Now I'm a partner in your organization. You earned it. Adrian's voice was quiet. Most people spend years proving themselves. You did it in half that time. Because you gave me chances. I gave you opportunities. You're the one who turned them into success. Adrian looked at her. You know what the difference is between you and most people I work with? What? You're not afraid to change. Most people get comfortable with who they are. They hit a ceiling and stop growing. Adrian turned back to the view. You kept pushing, kept becoming more than you were. That's rare. Elena thought about the girl in the hallway, the one who'd whispered a name and set everything in motion. I didn't have a choice. Going back to who I was would have meant going back to being invisible. I couldn't do that. No, you couldn't. Adrian's smile was brief. That's why this works. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Elena's phone buzzed, a number she didn't recognize. The text message was simple. This is Marcus. I'm coming home. And when I do, you're going to pay for what you did to my family. Elena's blood went cold. She showed Adrian the message. His expression went flat and dangerous. He's supposed to be in Singapore for 3 more years. Should I be worried? No, because he's not coming home. Adrian pulled out his phone, made a call. Marcus Voss just violated the terms of his exile. I want to know where he is and how he got out of Singapore. Yes, now. He hung up. Made another call. Gerald Voss, this is Adrian Vale. Your son just sent a threatening message to Elena Cross. You have 2 hours to explain how that happened or our agreement is void. Whatever Gerald Voss said on the other end made Adrian's jaw tighten. Then I suggest you find him fast. Because if Marcus sets foot in this city, I'm not sending him back to Singapore. I'm ending him. Permanently. Adrian disconnected. Come on, we're going to your apartment. What? Why? Because Marcus is stupid enough to try something, and I'm not taking chances with your safety. Adrian was already moving toward the exit. Pack a bag. You're staying at my place until this is resolved. I can take care of myself. I know you can. But you're a partner now. Which means when someone threatens you, they threaten the organization. And I don't negotiate with people who threaten what's mine. Elena followed him to the car, her mind racing. Marcus had been gone for 6 months. She'd almost forgotten about him, the catalyst for everything that had changed. Now he was coming back, bringing all that old fear and rage with him, except she wasn't the same person he'd hurt. That girl was gone. Adrian's penthouse was on the top floor of a building downtown, sleek, modern, with security that would make a fortress jealous. He showed Elena to a guest room with windows overlooking the city. Stay here tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out where Marcus is and handle it. Adrian paused at the door. You okay? I should be scared, right? He's coming after me. You should be realistic. He's a threat. But he's also just one man, and a stupid one at that. Adrian's expression was hard. I've handled worse threats than Marcus Voss. Trust me on this. Elena did trust him. That was the strangest part. 6 months ago, she didn't trust anyone. Now she trusted this dangerous man with her life. Get some sleep, Adrian said. We'll deal with this in the morning. But sleep didn't come easily. Elena lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Marcus and the Voss family, and how one moment in a hallway had led to all of this. Her phone buzzed at 3 a.m. Adrian. My security found him. Marcus is at a hotel downtown. Got in on a private flight his father arranged. Adrian's voice was cold. I'm handling this now. Let me come with you. Elena? He threatened me. I deserve to see how this ends. Elena was already getting dressed. I'm not asking permission. Silence on the other end. Then, fine. But you stay in the car until I tell you otherwise. The hotel was one of the expensive ones, the kind that didn't ask questions if you paid enough. Adrian's car pulled up to a service entrance. 3 men were waiting, part of his security team. They all wore the same cold, efficient expression. 4th floor, room 412, one of them said. He's alone. Checked in 2 hours ago under a fake name. Adrian nodded. Elena stays with the car. You 3 come with me. Elena watched them disappear into the building. Her heart was racing, adrenaline singing through her veins. She should stay in the car like Adrian said, should let him handle this. But she'd spent too many months being handled, being protected. She got out of the car and followed them inside. The hallway on the 4th floor was empty except for Adrian and his men standing outside room 412. Adrian saw her and his expression darkened. I told you to stay in the car. And I told you I'm not asking permission. Elena met his eyes. This is my fight too. For a moment she thought Adrian might send her back anyway. Then he nodded once. Stay behind me. He knocked on the door. Marcus, open up. We need to talk. Silence. Adrian nodded to one of his men, who produced a key card. Hotel security must have cooperated. The door opened. Marcus Voss stood in the middle of the room, and Elena barely recognized him. 6 months of factory work had stripped away the polish. He was thinner, harder, with calluses on his hands and rage in his eyes. "You!" Marcus spat, looking at Adrian. "You ruined my life." "You ruined your own life when you put your hands on my employee." Adrian's voice was calm. "You were supposed to stay in Singapore. My father got me out, said the deal was over. Your father violated our agreement, which means you're operating without protection." Adrian stepped into the room, his men flanking him. "Bad decision, Marcus." "I don't care anymore." Marcus's laugh was bitter. "You took everything from me. My life, my reputation, my future. What else can you do?" "I can end you." Adrian said it simply, factually. "Right now, one bullet, problem solved." Marcus's bravado cracked. "You won't. You're not a killer." "You're right, I'm not." Adrian glanced at Elena. "But she gets to decide what happens to you, not me." Elena felt every eye in the room turn to her. Marcus's face went pale when he realized she was there. "Elena," his voice cracked. "I'm sorry. What I did, I was drunk. I wasn't thinking. You beat me unconscious." Elena's voice was steady. "You and 7 other women, you're not sorry. You're just scared. Please, I'll leave. I'll go back to Singapore. I'll never contact you again. You sent me a threatening text 3 hours ago." Elena moved closer. "You said I was going to pay for what I did to your family. So which is it, Marcus? Are you sorry, or are you still trying to hurt me?" Marcus's hands were shaking. "I was angry. I didn't mean—" "You never mean it. That's the problem." Elena looked at Adrian. "What are my options?" "He disappears. Permanently." Adrian's tone was matter-of-fact. "Or we send him back to Singapore with additional consequences that make sure he never tries this again." Elena looked at Marcus, at the man who'd broken her, who'd started this entire chain of events. 6 months ago, seeing him like this would have given her satisfaction. Now she just felt tired. "I don't want him dead," Elena said quietly, "but I want him to understand what happens when you threaten people who can't fight back." She turned to Adrian. "Break his hands, then send him back to Singapore. Make sure he understands that if he ever contacts me again, if he even thinks about me, he won't get another warning." Adrian smiled. It was not a kind smile. "You heard her." What happened next was efficient and brutal. Elena turned away before it started, but she heard Marcus scream, heard the sound of bones breaking, heard him begging. When it was over, Adrian's men dragged Marcus out of the room. Adrian stayed behind with Elena. "You okay?" he asked. Elena's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "I will be." "You could have killed him. I would have supported that decision." "I know. But killing him would have made this about revenge. Breaking his hands and sending him back makes it about consequences." Elena met Adrian's eyes. "He'll spend the rest of his life knowing what happens when he crosses me. That's enough." "You're learning." Adrian's expression was approving. "Come on, let's get out of here." They left the hotel in silence. In the car, Elena finally let herself process what had just happened. She'd ordered violence against Marcus Voss, had stood there while Adrian's men broke his hands, had made the choice coldly, rationally, without hesitation. The girl from 6 months ago would have been horrified, but that girl was dead, had been dead for a long time. "Do you regret it?" Adrian asked quietly. Elena thought about it honestly. "No, he threatened me, violated the terms of his exile, forced me to deal with him again." She looked at Adrian. "I did what was necessary, same as you taught me. You're going to be very dangerous someday." "I'm already dangerous." Elena's smile was brief. "I just know how to hide it now." The next morning, Gerald Voss called Adrian personally. His son was on a plane back to Singapore with 2 broken hands and a very clear understanding that his exile was now permanent. The Voss family would never threaten Elena again. They'd learned what it cost to cross Adrian Vale, and by extension, to cross her. Word spread quickly through the city's underground. Elena Cross was untouchable, protected, dangerous in her own right. People who dismissed her as Adrian's latest acquisition started treating her with the wary respect reserved for people who had power and knew how to use it. 3 months later, Senator Whitmore won the governor's race in a landslide. He sent Elena a personal note thanking her for her contribution and renewing his offer of a position in his administration. She politely declined. Her future was here, in Adrian's organization, building something that belonged to her. Her mother's health improved dramatically with proper care and no financial stress. Elena visited every week, spinning stories about her legitimate job in consulting, never mentioning the reality of how she'd climbed so high so fast. Some truths were better left unspoken. 1 year to the day after Adrian had found her bleeding in a hallway, Elena stood on the balcony of the Obsidian watching the city. Adrian joined her with 2 glasses of whiskey. "Happy anniversary," he said, handing her one. "That's a weird thing to celebrate." "Is it? 1 year ago you made a choice. Whispered a name, trusted me with it." Adrian touched his glass to hers. "Everything that's happened since started with that choice." "I was terrified." "You were brave." Adrian's voice was quiet. "Most people in that situation would have stayed silent, taken the beating, disappeared back into invisibility. You chose to speak up. That took courage. Or desperation. Same thing sometimes." Adrian looked at her. "You've built something real here, Elena. Partnership, respect, power. That's not luck. That's you choosing to become more than you were." Elena thought about the journey, the fear and pain and transformation, the person she'd been versus the person she'd become. It wasn't a straight line. There'd been setbacks and mistakes and moments of doubt, but she'd kept moving forward, kept choosing growth over safety. "Do you ever miss who you were before?" she asked. "Before I was this?" Adrian gestured to the club, the city, the empire he'd built. "No, that person was weak, afraid. I became this because I refused to stay weak." "We're the same that way." "We're the same in a lot of ways." Adrian's smile was brief. "That's why this works." Elena understood. They were both people who'd been broken and had chosen to rebuild themselves into something harder, something that couldn't be broken again. It wasn't healthy by conventional standards, but conventional standards didn't apply to people who operated in the shadows. "What happens next?" Elena asked. "Next you keep building, keep learning, keep becoming whoever you're meant to be." Adrian finished his whiskey. "The city's changing. New players are moving in. Old alliances are shifting. There's going to be opportunities and threats. We'll handle them together." Together. Elena liked the sound of that. "Partners." "Partners." Adrian held out his hand. Elena shook it, feeling the calluses that matched her own now. They were both people who'd gotten their hands dirty building something that mattered, something that would last. Below them, the Obsidian pulsed with music and life. People dancing and drinking and making deals they'd regret in the morning. The city's heartbeat, chaotic and beautiful and dangerous. And standing above it all, Elena Cross felt something she'd never expected to feel again. She felt home, not in a place, not in safety, but in the knowledge that she'd become someone who couldn't be hurt the way she'd been hurt before. Someone who had power and knew how to wield it. Someone who'd chosen this life with eyes open and no regrets. The girl who'd whispered a name in a hallway was gone. In her place stood a woman who commanded silence, who made rooms pause when she entered, who'd transformed fear into strength and survival into power. She was Elena Cross, partner in Adrian Vale's organization, untouchable, dangerous. And the city would learn her name was not to be tested. Not because she was cruel, not because she wanted violence, but because she'd learned the most important lesson of all: the world respects power more than goodness. And sometimes, to protect what you love, you have to become what others fear. That was the truth Adrian had shown her, the truth she'd proven herself capable of embodying. Some people were born into power. Others had it thrust upon them. But the most dangerous people were the ones who'd been broken and had chosen to rebuild themselves into something unbreakable. Elena was one of those people now, and she was just getting started. The night air was cool against her skin as she stood beside Adrian, two people who understood each other in ways that went beyond words. They'd both been forged in darkness and had emerged harder for it. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats, new opportunities to prove herself. But tonight, Elena Cross allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. She'd survived. She'd transformed. She'd become. And in a city that ate the weak and rewarded the strong, that was the only victory that mattered.